All right, I'm gonna call the city council meeting to order for whatever day we are, July 8th. Any agenda additions or changes? Regina?
None for me.
Council?
No.
Okay. No need to approve the agenda. All right, public to be heard? Anyone who would like to be heard? Please raise your hand online or if you're in the room. Get rid of this little note taking thing because it's driving me nuts. Okay. All right.
Brian, just to check, can you hear us?
Oh,
Can
maybe
you hear
not.
us now?
No.
Is that better?
Awesome.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll have to ask.
Okay, let me go back. If we're on public to be heard. Is there anybody online? Risa, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm one of those people who lives in an area where we don't get mail all that often, unfortunately. So I still haven't received my utility bill. Yesterday, when I got mail at 4:30 and saw it was the mail I should have gotten on Monday, I thought, I'm never going to get this. So I sent an email through to the city requesting it. And at like the crack of dawn this morning, like she should have been home sleeping, Allison sent me the bill. I couldn't ask for better service at all. What would be great is if there could be a way that we could log on to the system and do that ourselves and not cause wonderful people like Allison to be up at 7:15 emailing me. Is that something that could be looked at or considered?
I'm looking at Regina. I don't know.
I don't have any sense of the level
Do you want
of
us to ask Jess? She's on.
task that would take, but it seems like certainly something reasonable to add to the list.
Thank you. And again, seriously, thank you to Allison. I sent her a thank you, but please thank her.
On that note, can I just ask, because I have not yet received mine, so I'm not thinking about it, when are they due?
The 30th.
30th.
Oh, boy. Okay.
You get time.
Yeah, that's funny because I got mine 2 days later.
Our letter carrier's on vacation.
Yeah, that's the flip side of it.
Sorry.
Okay, anybody else online? All right. I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll go on to 5A, which is discussion on the rolling stock capital plan. Oh.
Amber, just
Yes.
technically Brian didn't hear agenda additions
Oh.
or deletions, so.
Okay. Brian, did you want to make any agenda additions or deletions or changes or any of that stuff?
Thank you, Regina. No, I do not.
Okay, thanks.
Good catch.
All right. Rolling stock.
Rolling Stone. Okay, so we have talked about this a few times, but we've got it as an official agenda item now. So the memo describes the particular issue that came to light over the last couple of months, which is a $1.1 million fire truck that's slated for FY30 in the rolling stock plan. Because these trucks take 2 to 3 years to order and for production, the fire department was moving forward on their bid process to put that out. Because the rolling stock, when you look out to that date, goes negative, I've asked them to pause on that process because if we get some bids back, we are not in a position today to be able to commit to that purchase. So put in some information in here of what this all looked like during our budget preparation process. We were aware of this. We had other competing pressures that we did address and sort through for the FY27 budget. And at the time, we were prepared that rolling stock is working fine for FY27, so we would look at it at the upcoming year. So then, second part of the memo here just really talks about what the potential solutions are when we get into the next round of the budgeting process in terms of how to get the rolling stock working or out of the red in the future years. So really, the amount that is needed to increase the inputs into the rolling stock are around 218,000, with an intentional increase of that number every single year. So starting at about 218,000 in addition. So let me just find this real quick. We already are planning to put 345,000 into rolling stock in FY28. This would be 218,000 more, plus you increase that over 7% each year, and that would actually get us out of the red moving forward. The other options that are just thought about here in the memo in terms of increasing the revenue side is essentially what I just said. And there is the opportunity, which we will not know yet, and I don't know how quickly we will know this in our new FY28 budget process because we're starting the whole thing early. But it's if we successfully achieve over 15% of our unassigned fund balance at the end of FY26, we essentially can use that, whatever we're over, we can put that in as revenue and essentially buy down the tax rate for folks. That's a one-time influx. So if we are in that position, we can look at where we would want to put those dollars if we're there. We don't know if we'll be there yet. As a reminder, the first couple of years of being in the city, we were only at about 7% unassigned fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. Last year, we got up to 12% unassigned fund balance, and we're hopeful that we're going to get closer to that 15%. Grants, there are not many for these types of trucks and rolling stock, but that's always out there, and we are always have our eyes open. Then can ask for specific tax to help the rolling stock or in combination, whether it's public safety specifically. To some extent, that's coming from the taxpayers regardless, from one method or another. So, other way of looking at this is cutting expenses and what can we figure out how to either push out into the future or do away with adding altogether. We've got some vehicles in there already that are beyond useful life. This also comes with a bit of a balance because we are likely to see in the operating budgets, the repair and maintenance budgets going up the longer we're trying to keep trucks on the road beyond their useful life. We can remove vehicles from the fleet altogether. We have, over the last couple of years, looked at different things to try and think through that, like if we were to contract out sidewalk plowing as opposed to replacing sidewalk plows. We have not been able to make that work. Doesn't mean we will stop looking or thinking through those things, but we haven't been able to figure that out yet. And then the option of not adding new vehicles. The only new vehicle that you've got in there, which was approved in the FY27 capital plan, is the command vehicle for the fire department. Which is on consent agenda tonight. If you so choose to make a decision that impacts that, we can pull it out of consent. Okay, I think I probably hit on everything here.
I'm gonna just make one note in the FY '27 budget, you would have noticed an increase to R&M and Public Works of $60,000 associated with the aging fleet and the increased maintenance costs.
You're saying we already
Yes,
increased by
so in that,
60,000
in the
that?
budget
Yeah.
that just passed town meeting day,
Yeah.
was an increase of $60,000 in the Public Works budget for increased maintenance costs for their aged fleet.
Yep. So Jess, anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it. We will have, like Regina mentioned, it's very early in the budget process. We'll have information on that repairs and maintenance cost from Ricky, but it won't be for another probably month or so.
So, this memo says no action needed, because really this is a problem to solve in FY '28, but again, we can do what you like.
Open it up for questions, comments.
So I still see spending for streets about 614, 640, 484 in FY '29. We're still taking care of some of these replacements and other things. Is there a current list? It doesn't really matter to see the list, but we're still working on replacing vehicles while we're getting to this fire truck, or is everything on hold to accommodate the fire truck? Just want to make sure I'm understanding.
There are other, I think the question is, are there other vehicles that we are moving forward
Right.
for purchasing? Yes.
Okay.
Jess is shaking her head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only other thing I've brought up before, obviously, and we've all talked about it, is just this idea that this annual increase over year is sustainable. I mean, it's, the budget you'll be working on is 346, and it quickly gets $75,000 more in 3 years to 425, and it's just gonna keep going. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just pointing that out. I don't know how we do that. I don't have any answers to that, obviously, except to wonder, are there other ways to acquire trucks? Are there other, what's another approach? Not just fire trucks, but generally. I just don't know. Just a lot of questions, because the way we're moving just feels, like I said, it feels unsustainable from a revenue point of view.
Yeah, and I can just say, in the last budget process, that's why we looked at all the transfers. We really did a comprehensive look at the whole thing, and Jess laid out a number of different scenarios of how to address that. We did keep the general capital transfer flat, essentially, because we have now enough years of the lot funding coming into the picture. So we were able to do that on the general project side. We knew rolling stock could not be kept flat
Right.
by any stretch, and we had to increase the stormwater transfer, which we knew was phase 2 of a 2-year plan. So yeah, it's a lot, and we continue to have a lot of needs.
What is the projected, so flat was 1 year for capital. What's the guess on, or what's the plan for annual increases for '28 and beyond for the capital fund? I know we're talking about rolling stock, but I'm just curious how they come together.
Yeah, I'm looking at Jess, she doesn't know, I'm looking at her, but I am.
Me too.
Yep.
But
So we have right now in the capital plan that was approved for FY '27, there's an annual increase of just 1% each year.
And that was 10% prior.
Yes.
Scaled it back significantly. Because of lot funds.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the rolling stock that was presented to us for FY '26 had the engine, this fire truck replacement at $900,000 in FY '30, and then in FY '27, we have 1.1 million. So in the year, that replacement went up $200,000, right? That's what we're saying.
Justin, do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I share Raj's concern about a 7.2% increase in perpetuity and how sustainable that is. But I also don't have any answers, and I don't think anyone else does either.
Are-
Yeah. Go ahead.
There are, I'm assuming other ways, I mean, I know that there are other ways. The town of Essex leased fire trucks for a number of years, where they had a 10-year lease, and at the end of the term, there was a $1 buyout. And assuming we're looking at the same kind of channels and the same things, just maybe, I don't even know if it'll help. I'm just saying it's there, it was an option. I don't know if they're still doing it, but I know they did do it for a period of time, and I don't know what that would look like. You know, breaking the price, $100,000 a year as a lease with a $1 buyout at the end versus paying 1.1 out the door initially. If that makes any impact to anything, you know.
Go ahead, Brian.
Tim, are you proposing leasing fire trucks, or are you proposing buying 10-year-old fire trucks from the town?
It would be a lease of they lease new vehicles.
Okay, just so I understand.
Yeah, not looking to buy a used old something, but the town very recently has leased through the manufacturer or subsidiary of the manufacturer agent, and broken that cost over a number of years.
I did want to understand what you're proposing, but it's not exactly an idle question. I don't.
Anything, I'm just saying, I know that this is something that they've done. I assume we're looking into it too. I don't know if it will change the complexity or the math to what we need to do in order to shore this fund up, but it might be a different viable option in order to move progress forward while taking some relief off of other things at the same time.
Sure, but I do think that you have two good suggestions there, and I hope that we're looking at both. I don't know about fire trucks as much as you do, sir, but for automobiles, a 3-year-old automobile is almost as good and a quarter of the price. So I don't know if that applies to fire trucks as well.
I would define that as operational. So, I'm just saying, like, I know that there are other options out there as opposed to just coming up with 1.1 in FY30 to purchase this fire truck. And I'm hoping that we're exploring.
I think we're agreeing.
Regina?
Yeah, so I think conceptually, we certainly have thought about other options. I don't know that we have investigated fully what the lease terms would be and what the price point would be. We certainly can do that in preparation for FY28. Generally, whether we're gonna bond or lease, those things are essentially the same. We're still having to come up with the same amount of money to pay back, no matter which way we're looking at it, over a number of years. But they could, when it comes down to it, it could potentially get us a better rate, so we certainly can look at that. And Brian, to your point, there are municipalities that also buy used vehicles. That for sure is a thing that some folks do. It can be tricky for managing those trucks because we're just, what we're trying to do over the last couple of years is get to a place where we are keeping our vehicles while they're under warranty and then trying to get ahead of replacing them so that we don't have older vehicles that are more costly to repair. That's been the plan. So certainly we have thought about all those things. All those things are on the table. They're just trade-offs between costs up front versus costs down the road.
And would any of that mean that, I mean, it doesn't sound like doing any of that would mean that we wouldn't have to deal with this problem at some point?
If we buy used vehicles, they're probably a lot cheaper. It still means I think we have more costs in operation and maintenance over time. If we lease a vehicle, it essentially costs the same, really. At the end of the day, it's just split differently.
And so I do want to acknowledge that there are vehicles within our rolling stock that are operating well past their life. There's, Public Works has several vehicles that should have been replaced a number of years ago that have not yet been replaced.
I think the trade-off there is the $60,000 that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
So that's the
So
reality of the situation.
The street sweeper goes through that gets us credits from the state for cleaning the roads. And trying to think back, the front end loader, I believe, is the other one that were both due for replacement a number of years ago. And if we recall back, boy, it's probably the budget day 2 years ago, I asked Jess, because Elaine had added $100,000 to the fund balance, and asked Jess, would it make a difference to the rolling stock if we added that $100,000 to that instead, to move any of that equipment up?
Any other?
So, yeah, a couple, Brian, unless you, I've talked a couple times already, do you?
Do you have anything, Brian? No.
So the memo said, sorry, so I guess in this budget year's dollars, the memo is referring to, this is more of a semantic, I guess, for me, but 218.5 equates to a 2% increase, but do we have a sense what the new grand list is at this point? Or are we still trying to, because it's not gonna be that next for FY '28. It's more like a 1.2 or 1.3, I'm assuming, but,
I do not know.
okay, doesn't really matter, I guess. The only other thing is I'm generally uncomfortable. I know part of the meeting is gonna be to approve a vehicle that has been discussed, I think, for 2 years and gone through multiple approvals. With this conversation and the difficulty we're facing and finally kind of coming to terms with it, I just want to acknowledge I'm a little uncomfortable adding more vehicles to the fleet when we're looking at this one-time increase with the annual increases that we've already acknowledged. We're not sure how we're going to manage. So
Yeah.
respecting the fact that past boards, one of which I was on, have approved this command vehicle, and it's gone through multiple things through no fault of the fire department and the time it takes and the rebidding, I still think it's, for me, very difficult to have this conversation, look forward to what we're dealing with as a community, and add more vehicles to the fleet. But I just want to put that out there
Yeah, thank you.
to say that, because I think it bears acknowledgement, because people are gonna find out, we just had this conversation, and then, yes, we also added the truck, then in 10 years we'll need to come due. And at that point, we will have had presumably 10 years of 7% increases. And, or who knows, based on what inflation does, what those increases will be. So acknowledging I approved it, I think, the first go-around, and that I don't necessarily think it's not necessary, but
Yeah,
I just want to say out loud that I see it, we understand it. The fire department has produced, and we've agreed in the past that there's a need for it. And that's kind of the situation we're in. I just think it bears saying out loud, so.
I was just gonna say, I'll revert back to my last statement from last meeting too, is I think given where we're at and what we know now, our circumstances have changed. And it's the same exact reason that I voted against the multimodal Pearl Street project. Not that it's a bad project, it's just not the right time. And so that's kind of how I'm feeling about this as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to be a little more realistic about where we are financially and figure these issues out before we make major purchases when we know we have so many vehicles we already need to replace.
Does anybody else have any initial comments here? Otherwise, I'm gonna open up to public discussion and then bring it back to us. Not seeing any, so public. Marcus.
All right, so I have a couple of questions. Because first, Raj, I appreciate you bringing this up, because one of the things that came to mind for me was the capital plan and the intersection potentially of lot funds. And because we have seen as a community, those lot funds increase over the last few years. Not that you can count on everything, but again, it's like part of the question that came to mind for me in reading this memo was, would there be the potential for declaring a certain percentage, much in the same way that you did for sidewalks, to do that potentially for rolling stock or whatever? Or how do we approach that differently? But looking at the packet from the capital review, I see a line here for the lot fund, but I do not see any amounts in here. And it looks like the projects are covered by the general fund and doesn't include any lot funds, if I'm reading this correctly. So it makes me wonder, where's the lot funds? Because I thought they were supposed to be applied to all these projects.
I thought there were an input line.
And why don't you ask your questions and then we'll come.
So my question is, first off, is this true? Am I reading this correctly from this packet? Because then there might be an excess of funds that could actually help this situation. The other is trying to understand, because we saw this coming when I was on the council, we talked about it, but I'm trying to remember, and I don't know that we approach this. So this problem is happening, as we can see, over the next 4 years from what's in the packet here. But it recovers in year 3 or 4. And I assume that trend going forward, it recovers further. And so I'm curious what the recovery is for. I'm assuming it's because something's dropping off the list. Some costs are dropping off the list in FY30, FY31, that expenditure comes down significantly. So our in the hole is only 64,000 in FY30 versus 213 and 323,000 respectively in the 2 previous years. So I'm kind of curious where that recovery kind of happens in the fund, because if we have an understanding of that, maybe that's something else that we can leverage and maneuver around to kind of help ease this. The other thing I'll ask the council, and again, I brought this up at the last meeting, and I'll say this again. These expenses are hitting in a way, while some of these discussions happened with previous councils, this is happening differently right now. And I think some of this is happening in such a way that a pause would be great. But I think, this was already brought up for this discussion tonight, I would ask the council to take the command vehicle out of the consent agenda and put it on pause. Because it doesn't sound like anybody has any answers. You're not going to be moving forward on a plan for this tonight. And I'd rather the council have every lever at its disposal to make a decision on how it wants to proceed. It's not about yay or nay on the command vehicle. It's about making sure that you have it still as a lever. Because if you pass on the consent agenda, you've lost that leverage to use that potentially if you need to. As you come up with a solution for this problem. Thanks.
Thank you. You want Jess to address those 2 questions, Virginia?
Yeah, Jess, can you take the, where the lot comes in?
Sure. So Marcus, that line, the lot fund line that was added to the capital review committee's ranking file was just added for this last meeting. We are in the process of figuring out which capital projects that have already been ranked and added to the capital plan might be suitable for some of the sidewalk funds. Other than that, the lot fund, as you might recall from the budget file, is its own separate fund and spreadsheet and budget within the master budget file. So that sheet will give you all of the detail as to the annual transfer that gets made to the capital reserve fund, as well as the 25% that is earmarked for sidewalks. So right now, basically what's happening with the lot funds is that the annual transfer is happening to the capital reserve. So you see that on the capital reserve fund balance that's in the packet. It's not in this packet, it's in the budget packet, sorry. You'll see that lot transfer in reflected there. And then as far as the sidewalks funds goes, those are all reflected within that lot fund specific budget within the master file.
Sidewalk, because it sounded like you were taking some sidewalk funds and applying them to capital projects. Is that what I just understood? Because if that's the case,
No, we're not doing that yet. So the capital committee with staff are in the process of right now of looking at the existing ranked capital projects to see if there are sidewalk components that we could use lot funds for.
That clarifies that for me. Thank
Learn
you.
more about that later. And that,
So, and then the other question was, it looks like the rolling stock balance recovers, just off screen, in year FY 32, it goes back to,
143,
yeah. It
Negative
goes negative
143.
again. FY 33 goes negative to the million again.
Okay.
Plus then 1.3, then 1.5 in years out. The rolling stock is nothing but a world of replacement in the future.
Yeah.
There continues to be trucks that come up for replacing. So it looks pretty good because FY 31, we have very little planned replacements in that particular year. But then we get right back to it.
At this point,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that
Yes.
there might not be something that comes up.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as you've just started the conversation around the budget, and if you did start to think about services that you're gonna change, that will obviously impact then what stock you need to still have to maintain those services, so.
yep.
Anyway, just keep your options open.
Anyone online who would like to comment, please raise your hand. I am not seeing any, so I'm gonna bring it back here. So I guess we don't need to ultimately make a decision tonight. This is just a discussion to kind of give staff the direction as we're going into item B, which is the budget discussion. As they're planning the budget, they kind of need to understand from us what our thought process is here.
The only question is whether or not we're comfortable leaving the command vehicle in consent or pulling it out at this point, right?
Well, I think that the ultimate question here is which direction we're going. It's not about the command vehicle.
Well, yeah, we're rolling stock in
That's-
general.
yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
That is a
Rolling
component
stock
of
in
it.
general, and that is the piece
Yeah.
before us.
So,
So, I mean, I'll start off by saying it, I am super comfortable saying, stop, let's wait. I don't have enough information. I'll see what it looks like at budget day and we can make an informed decision from there. But, I think and I really struggle with it, but I think that's probably the right thing to do at this point, is to just stop, not add to anything, see what this looks like going into when we have harder numbers of whether or not we have fund balance available or earned interest or any of this other stuff that we have talked about, and what our true scenario looks like heading into next year.
want to comment at all?
No.
Okay. Stephanie?
I would also be more comfortable pulling the command vehicle out of the consent agenda. And pausing, recognizing, as Raj did, that it's already gone through a bunch of approvals before I joined the council. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about the rolling stock.
That's fine. That's fine. Brian?
Yeah, I think getting more information before we make a final decision without committing to the command vehicle is a good plan, although we got to take it out of the consent agenda first if that's how we should go. Should I make that motion?
Can you pause for 2 seconds? I'll come back to that. I just want to get everybody's initial comments on before.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, though. Raj?
I mean, I've said what I think.
Okay.
I think, what I don't want to do, and I want to be very clear about this, is say no to it.
Right, and I don't think,
I don't want to put us in a position where fire department, staff, everything's gone through this, presented a need, and we simply say no. That's what I want to avoid. So I do think a couple months or a month, whatever it is, might be useful if that's what people think. But I just want to make sure we're not blowing up without giving it more thought or more consideration, really seeing where we're at. I don't think that's worth it. So
yeah, just to
That makes sense.
be clear, I'm not advocating
No, I
to
know.
kill it in any way,
Yep.
shape, or form.
I just wanna make
I'm
sure
just
that
saying,
we're not.
we really need to have a better picture of our overall financial health in order to make an informed decision that is going to affect, yet again, these enormous pressures that we're under already headed into 28, and it's 8 days into 27.
So can I just add that there will be nothing different in a month or two than what we have in front of us today. There
Yeah.
won't be anything different until the FY '28 budget and what that shakes out to be next July.
Well, we'll have information at budget day.
You have the same
Projections.
information as what you've got in front of you. I mean,
We certainly will,
Projections.
by
Yeah.
budget day, we will certainly have a solid handle on what we think we can do for the FY '28 budget and what it all includes as priorities and what we can't achieve and where
Great.
the difficult questions are gonna be. We will certainly know all that.
Yep,
And that's November.
yep.
Between now and then, we won't, there is no other information to bring forth, unless I'm missing anything. Any other information to bring forth from your perspective?
Absolutely not. We brought everything forward.
I think for me, it's more having a picture of what I'm facing for the next tax bill in September. I have an idea of what I'm facing in the tax bill in September. 70,000, 218, 218 minus 70,000 is a different percentage increase on top of that at this point. So that's in a very blunt terms. If I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing, I'm not happy. And I'm just one person. And so that's where I'm at. And so if that means this is super inconvenient and really an annoyance, then I think I'm starting to get to the place where that's kind of where I am. Because I have a really good idea of what I'm facing in September for the next tax year, and it's not good, if I'm blunt. So, yeah, I'd like to know what that is first, and I'd like to nitpick where I can to make that possible for me, because it's gonna be significant for me. So, not to make it about me, but if I extrapolate that out to everybody else, it's not just gonna hit me. So,
Yeah.
I am going to,
if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, or just, I'm happy to debate it a little bit. I'm
no,
not trying to
everyone is entitled to their opinion. I'm just gonna put mine out there because everyone else has already had their bill twice around the table here. So I'm gonna be the outlier in this conversation and say that I would have approved and will approve the command vehicle, as we've had this conversation for several years and we have approved it. I fully recognize the financial situation we're in. I fully recognize the situation that we are in with our taxpayers and trying to ask more of them. It is a balance, unfortunately, in which we run a city. We run a city that needs vehicles. We run a city that needs vehicles that are operational. And it's not, removing the command vehicle does not get us $200,000. It is not, we need to look at this, in my opinion, only from speaking for myself, we need to look at this as a future, we are solving a problem for the future, we're not solving the problem today. Removing the command vehicle does nothing for solving the future problem. $70,000 is nothing in regards to that, to 215 and going on until infinity and beyond. So I come from the position that if a department head sits in front of me and asks for something, they're doing it because they feel the need for it, and they're fully recognizing that they're asking the taxpayers to take on that. So that's where I'm coming from. I think unless anybody else has anything, I will certainly take your motion if that is the direction you guys want to go.
Well, just to clarify, because it was put out there, this isn't about trusting the department heads. This isn't about trusting the process. Like I said at the beginning, I initially approved this when it came up the first time. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. I want to see what the impact is, and I'm not sure unless there's a reason, a couple months of finding out what August brings. Really, next month, we'll know. 3 weeks, we'll know. So if you want to bring it back, great. The budget day is not going to change the fact that we need to find $219,000. Whittling that percentage down a little bit, though, would help me, and it probably helps some people.
It helps.
And
It helps
I know-
the first year.
I mean, if we
Right.
get it,
I mean, if we take the command
if
vehicle
we
out the first year.
if we get it,
Yeah.
period, right? If it's bad for folks, then maybe we don't get it for a while, and it helps them for longer. And I just think waiting a month, 2 months to see how it plays out. This isn't like a 3-year lead time purchase. I don't mean to argue against it. There's all kinds of reasons to do it. They're excellent reasons. I mean, we've all seen them, we've heard them, they've been repeated. I'll go with I'm open to this. I just want folks to hear us, not for show, but I want folks to hear us actually thinking about this, and acknowledging the fact that this is not nothing. In the grand scheme, you both made excellent points. 70 across 1.1 million. It's pretty, especially if it's just going to get done in the end. I get it. But I hear people are nervous, and I'm trying to respect that.
And I would also just like to add that, for me, this is, again, I am not saying that we should not get the command vehicle, but I do think I would like to better understand the fiscal 28-year budget as a whole before. And that's, like Raj said, that's in a couple weeks, at least for the early conversations.
Yeah, so just
The
to be clear, I
tax,
think that Raj's point, and it is a good one, and we prepared the FY '27 budget knowing that the reappraisal year was a big unknown for everybody. And it remains a big unknown until you get your tax bills, really. So that's the known in a month or so. So I appreciate clarification of that.
Yeah, I don't mean budget day.
Yeah.
I don't
No, I know.
because that's
Yeah. Then, what you'll have a sense of FY '28 budget in November when we get to budget day.
and they'll end up nowhere near what we started with, probably. So understanding that, but
Okay. Brian?
I move to pull the command vehicle discussion out of the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Okay, so I'm gonna put that on as, I'll put it on as E and then shift the executive session to F. No, I'll try to remember to do that. All right, any last comments? Regina, do you have what you need from us in some capacity? Okay,
I do.
all right. Anything before we move on to the next difficult topic?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to 5B, which is discussion of the FY28 budget direction.
Okay. So, super fun annual conversation to get us going. I'm setting some direction for development of the FY28 budget. We get ourselves prepared for the FY28 budget with two different discussions. One is the retreat, so we had that at the beginning of June, which was very helpful. We don't really talk about the sort of dollar or level of comfort on percentage increase at that meeting. So this meeting is to give us a bit of direction on that as best as you all can. And then tomorrow we will be hitting send on the directions to the department heads to start building their budgets. I put the last last 3 years of fiscal year information on here, so you've kind of got what the budgets have looked like over the last 3 years. There is a note here that we will be entering association contracts within about a month or so. We will be working towards a contract for the FY28 year. This is always a little bit tricky when we're in a contract negotiation year because we don't necessarily have that finalized. I mean, fingers crossed, it'd be amazing. Hope we can get it all across the finish
Love your
line.
optimism.
By the time we are handing over the budget to you folks, but it is not likely. I will note that part of what we saw in FY27, which we won't likely see again, but we had our budget in a pretty good place, and then the police budget was about don't quote me on this, but it was about a $250,000 increase.
It was.
Yep.
That won't be happening again this year. Okay, I think, the other thing to kind of point out here for folks is just the timing, because again, this is different. As a reminder to myself as well, we have not officially had the discussion about when your annual meeting will be. You will have to make that choice at some point, but I'm pretty sure we're all on board with moving to town meeting day, and so that's how we are moving forward. And so that means your budget day itself will likely be within the week of November 16th. Jess, anything you want to add?
The only other thing I did today, just for my own information to see where it was at, is you'll see the memo, item D references the inflation rate as a helpful point of information. So what I looked at today was just to see where we're at so far for calendar year 2026. The average right now through May is running at 3.2%. The last couple years have been 2.6 and 2.9 respectively.
I feel like this is always like this shot in the like.
Well, yeah, and I think
I'll start you at 2. Who
I
wants to
feel
raise
well.
the
I feel
rate?
like this is even
So
a little
good.
bit more difficult this year because the tax rate
Yeah.
is unknown, right? So, and back to Raj's point, it's like it's just a crapshoot,
Yeah.
and then everything else that comes into it.
I think this.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll be curious if Jess has a reaction to that as well. But so I think what's unknown, just to be clear, is if there's a shifting off of commercial, industrial, and more onto residential. That's that's the unknown that I think is gonna be kind of a big piece. The tax rate will definitely be significantly
Lower, yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're talking about, when we ask you like what percentage, we're talking about the
Mhm.
expense side of the equation, so, what level of increase, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say flat too, but that means we're cutting things and I don't know what that is. But a level of, budget increase is really in comparison to where we're at now, which is close to 12 point something.
12.9.
12.9 on the general fund. That's what we're talking about. How it kind of shakes out from the tax rate side is, not necessarily relevant. We are not talking about an increase that will raise people's taxes in and of itself in a very big way. If people's taxes raise in a big way, that's for other sort of outstanding factors that are
And-
associated with a potential shift that we will have a little bit of a better handle on in the coming.
And so, if I may, I will go back because I really appreciated your comment last year where it's kind of tongue in cheek. You said, I don't know if you've noticed, but I tend to lean a little fiscally conservative. And so, you know,
Bless your heart.
I really appreciated that comment because I think it's an important one to say and to acknowledge. Because the budgets that I've been a part of, you and your team have done an amazing job of getting them to the point where we can kind of nod and shake and go, nice job, okay, thanks for doing the hard work. And I watch budget processes from other municipalities and they drag them on for weeks at a time and they go department by department and line by line. And it kind of comes to us in this final form that's really easy to understand. And a lot of that legwork is done. And, you know, I struggle with, is there one answer for every department, right? Like, does, you know, did we say 4%? Is that, you know, is 4% across the board to every department? Or can the library go up 3% and the fire department can go up 4%? And, you know, in waste, you know, it's just all of these different entities that go into it. And so they struggle with, if we say, okay, we're looking at a 4% budget increase, does that equate to 4% per, you know, for every department when it's not necessarily, you know, they may not need it or they may not, you know, and so.
Sounds like you're leaning on 4%.
I am leaning, and I think that's historically, and but I do want to acknowledge that 3% of last year's budget was the police contract. Just 2.9% of our increase last year was the new police contract.
Right.
And so we don't have that pressure this year. But we do acknowledge that there are already all of these other pressures circling around us. And it is, as I said, again, 8 days into the fiscal year. So happy times. You too can run for city council. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to see somewhere around 4 as myself, I think, personally, where I'm at. And I think that kind of can accomplish some of what we need to do and be respectful of the people that we represent, and I think that's my piece.
Bethany.
I don't love this question that I'm about to ask, but
Yeah.
have there been conversations in the past about if we cut services, which services?
I think we've tried to avoid having that conversation, generally speaking, because we're hearing, I mean, I think we're hearing from the community that they don't want us to cut services.
Yeah, I
And
mean-
that's the balance, right?
Yeah.
You, in one hand, you're saying don't cut services, but you're also saying don't raise our taxes, and so that's the trade-off.
And so, like, we looked at outsourcing our road painting and our sidewalk plowing last year. And those numbers came back huge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
and
So
some.
cutting services wouldn't save us money, probably.
you know?
Oh,
Well, you
cutting
you could do away with the
Oh.
sidewalk plowing, but I'm gonna give them your phone number.
Oh, no.
it's,
Wouldn't dream of getting rid of.
Yeah, no, it's just, but it's like, where do you cut? What do you do, you know?
people have a really hard time identifying things, sometimes for themselves, but certainly for their neighbors to do without. I usually like to ask both questions, you know, and I think when you look at the budget, and I appreciate Tim's comment, I appreciate the effort the city puts in. I don't think people realize how incredibly tight the municipal budget is and how little room there is and how efficiently the city and the employees provide those services. I know it sounds, you know, put on if I'm saying it like this, but it really is, like when people say cut, it's just sort of a head scratcher as to where. I think people need to realize that if you're taking a unit's budget, you'd have to get rid of multiple people to make an actual impact, like multiple people in each department to impact people who really notice and takes time.
You know, there,
I think that sounds silly, just having the rolling stock conversation we had, but some of these expenses do compound every year, right? So it's nitpicking to the level where it's dangerous almost to drag it out over 15 meetings and nitpicking every line. We've kind of fallen into that pattern in the past a little bit, and someone's always pulled us out, either it's Regina or somebody else. But I have just a super quick question, though. So we identified $219,000 that is a one-time input into the rolling stock for that year, right? So where does that fit into this ask right now?
So, just to be clear, for FY '28, we would have to raise $220,000 more into rolling stock. And then that is the level at which we need to sustain money in the rolling stock year over year with a 7% increase on top of that.
Right. So
So you will see that leap of an increase from where we are today to that number in FY '28 or whichever year you're gonna do it. That is collectively within this
Right.
whole
Yep.
discussion.
and if that's 2%
and
of
Yeah.
the, well, tax rate's different than the
Yeah,
budget. So
yeah.
it's still a big number in the overall tight budget.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
okay.
that's where you cross your fingers for
Fund balance.
earned interest and fund balance.
Well, I
And
think the other thing that's
those
on the
are-
table that we've had many of conversations about as we're going into budget season is the revenue component and trying to do a little bit more balance on, you know, can we find something in the revenue column, i.e., you know, interest, et cetera, that will help us offset some of this. And there is no
It's the,
there is no magic bullet out there. It's very possible that staff is gonna come back to us and say, sorry, there's nothing there. We've
Yeah.
cracked it. No, there is nothing. There is nothing. And so, but the one thing I wanna say about this tax rate in the, you know, the budget discussion is that we're asking a lot of staff. We are. We sat around this table next door talking about comm dev, economic development, all of those things. And at some point, if we want to see those things happen, we have to add the money to the budget in order to do that. A person is 110,000 randomly pulling numbers out of you know what. So, you know, it's probably more than that, honestly. And so that's a percentage. That is 1%. So I think we internally need to figure out what we want out of this budget too. If we really want to see things done, then we need to give the staff more flexibility on the budget side. So that's where I'm coming, my number is 5. That's where I'm going, because I am also cognizant of all of those things, but also the fact that we're in union negotiations and there is gonna be a lot that is required of us for that as well. So I'm coming to you, I promise, I see you.
no, you're fine.
So I will get off my soapbox, go ahead.
I figured rather than just blurt it out, I just want to say, this is July. At
Yeah.
some point, we always add money into this budget.
Yeah,
And so 2 years ago, it was money for the fund balance, and last year, it was $30,000 for economic development. I think those are, in my mind, two separate asks, right? Like, we're asking for essentially a budget from staff here to operate the city and what they need to operate. And then we can move the needle further if we're comfortable collectively or in a majority to address some of the other things that have been brought. And I just want to put that out there because that's very much the way I'm looking at it tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, I guess I look at it a little differently because those are pretty small moves that we did at the 11th hour. After we
Well,
were pretty.
Yeah, $100,000 is 1%,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not unheard of to add $100,000
Yeah.
at the 11th hour. And,
But I think that 100,000, so just using my example of, again, we've sat around the table
Yeah.
talking about adding either a community development person for some enforcement or an economic development to deal with economic development, whatever that happens to be. That doesn't just come with a person, that comes with all sorts of other things that go behind it. So adding just the $100,000 to the budget at the 11th hour to add a person isn't necessarily going to help us. Those two things, I think, were 100,000 adding to the budget just to add.
Yeah, no, I
is
understand
just
what
a
you're
straight
saying.
up thing.
I understand what
And
you're
adding the
saying.
30,000 was an RFP.
but I think, what I'm trying to say is there's still time between what we say tonight
Yeah,
and where we end up to move that needle. I think this to me is a form baseline conversation.
yep,
Of where, where we're at. And again, it's a complicated conversation
Yeah.
tonight. And just because of all of the externals that, as Raj has pointed out, and so that's, again,
Yeah.
I had this conversation with you earlier today. You look at it one way and
Yep.
my
Chicken
brain
and the
sees
egg,
it
yep.
completely the other. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think there's plenty of time to move that needle. And just, I would love to see some iteration because I know we go through 2 or 3 iterations through the whole process. So,
we go through more than 2 or 3.
well, yeah, but I don't want to misspeak, and it's late for me.
Yeah. Anything else, Mayor?
No.
I was looking at Beth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just, in terms of throwing out a number, I think I'm leaning closer to 5 myself, just because I agree with Amber. We, not only do we constantly talk about what we would like to do, the staff has things, that have been on their lists for years, and we hear from the community that they want to see more, as much as they also want us to reduce taxes. There's a balance, but I would, 5% seems like.
Brian, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to, I remember being where Bethany was last year and not having an idea really what this question was. And I said, well, what do you guys typically do? And Elaine said, we typically have for the last X number of years asked for approximately 3. 3 being, just over inflation for most of those things, for most of those years. 3, and meaning that we've had a flat budget for a decade. I looked at Jess's inflation numbers and, they're the CPI numbers, but thank you for including them in the packet. Tangent for a second. I would have liked to see, I couldn't find these handy, the healthcare inflation numbers. It does seem to be about on par with regular inflation, although I'm skeptical of my own research. So if someone could find that out, that would be lovely. Because that's a big driver. That is the biggest driver of our costs. I was going to say, given the environment and the things that we're asking, I was thinking that 4 was would be the target that I would suggest for.
I'll say 4, and then I'll say I asked for a lot at the retreat, and I'm counting on the excellent narratives and manager's notes that we get when receiving the first budget, that usually get into things like, this is what you asked for, here's what we could do if, I don't want to overwork you on like, here's 60, I don't expect scenarios like big time, but like, if we get 4 or 5 back and you say, and look, this, we missed out maybe on some of the priorities that were set early at the retreat. If this is important, this is what it would take. And I think we've seen something like that in the past, so I think 4 feels like a decent starting place, understanding that it's a pretty fluid time, so.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up for public comments and I'll bring it back to us to kind of conclude. Reese, I see you have your hands up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Please help me remember. I think I remember correctly, but so let's say the number is 5%. That is then in addition to whatever we're paying for our various bonds, right? It doesn't include those various bonds. So those of us at home are looking at perhaps a 5% increase plus the bonds plus the school tax, correct?
Jess, so you're gonna see the debt repayments depending on where they land, which fund they're in. So, the general fund debt, you will see that in the 5%. The debt that's associated with wastewater, sanitation, water, you see that debt in your utility bills. So this target that I'm asking for right now from the council is really, I'm talking about the general fund side, but it's helpful to understand the overall goal. We will work to present a budget that hits 5% with the bond payments worked into that. Jess can correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope, you're on. The only thing that we will be adding potentially this year is the Public Works facility. So, but again, that bond payment, when we start making it, will be included in the debt service budget as part of the general fund budget.
Thank you both so much.
Any other questions online? In the room?
Thank you for the clarity too on that, on the bonds. I appreciate that very much. I asked for this, I brought this up last year, and it wasn't, when I asked, it wasn't appropriate to do it at that time, but I'm gonna ask for it now, is if the city can provide in some form or fashion a list of services that the city provides, you know, the non-statutory, the things that could potentially be discussed. And I say that because I think even the discussions I have with people around the budget and what we do, and because I get all of your reasonings, the conversation also a lot of times is they also don't know all the things that we do for them necessarily. That's why often it's the easiest thing to do is to pull out and say sidewalk plows, because it's the one thing that they do know that we do. But we could look at potentially reducing sidewalk plowing in order to save cost. But in order for the community to have that discussion and participate in this, to bring back feedback to the council, I think it would be really great if the residents could have a better understanding of what that means in some form or fashion, whether it's the list of those services and a potential impact amount, I don't know, but some way so that the community can have a conversation. Because obviously we need to have that conversation now, not in December. The other thing that I want to acknowledge, and I appreciate, again, all the comments that were made around this, is to the same point, we're looking at, while we don't have a police association to worry about, we do have an association contract that we don't know what that end result will look like. But we can imagine it's going to be on an increase. So that being said, if the council, or if anyone on this council, or even residents, I'll say this generally, you know, if people have ideas around the things that they want to trim, I think we should put those on the table as quickly as possible, and that's to help the team that's negotiating that contract be able to walk into that room knowing the services that they're going to have to be able to provide. it'll make that negotiation a little bit easier, I think. So I would ask that if anybody has any ideas, please share those, because I think it will help the process. And last but not least, again, I understand where you're coming to these numbers. My struggle is that thinking about where this is going from a tax rate standpoint and where the burden is going to end up, having things like the utility properties be devalued in this last assessment over the last year, that's going to have an impact on this. The signs seem to line up. The residents are going to have to carry more of this burden. So I have that firmly in the back of my head until the final number is presented, and I look forward to seeing that because, you know, a 5% increase on top of the fact of having another $2 million bond discussion coming up, you know, these are just things that we need to be mindful of. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do those things. It's just a matter of how we get there. And I agree with you, Amber. We definitely need more revenue. I would like to see the council take on a comprehensive review of the fees and rates that we currently have, say in our land development code and potentially other fee schedules, just to make sure that we, again, are covering the bases and we're not undervaluing our services. Because those things will benefit us in the long haul. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, so everyone,
Just want to suggest that the service catalog you're talking about, in a lot of ways, are the work plans. If it's not quite the list you're talking about, but if people want a really detailed look at what the city does, I don't think I've ever seen a more detailed look than sort of, because it's pretty much spelled out, at least the top 10 things that every department does. It feels like it's in
I
there.
would just ask as a resident, it could be more easily
More concise.
digestible if it was put in a,
List?
yes.
We're good at lists.
I'll have to work on that. Okay, so bringing it back to us, generally heard, we're the outliers on this with the 5%, so, three have 4, so we're gonna give that number across the table here, and understanding that, before we even say it, like, this is a preliminary conversation, I get this, but she needs something to work with. Unless you wanna change your number to 5,
I'm good.
balance.
I
Okay.
will bite my tongue. Let the record reflect.
the record reflects this is the only time Tim Miller has ever read his tongue. Okay. What do you wanna say?
Nope.
Okay,
Stop.
all right,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, topic, conversation, fun. Number 3, 5C, which is discussion and consideration on the West Street Forcemain project, including a bond vote, et cetera, on there, so.
Okay, we got
So much
Chelsea.
fun. Hey, Chelsea.
Yeah, hi. Lots of fun. Okay, so our West Street Pump Station, some of you might recall, others might not be aware, but West Street Pump Station, River Street Pump Station, and Maple Street Pump Station are all currently under design for full replacement. They're all 40+ years old, which is way too long for a pump station. Typical lifespan should be 25 years. So that bond passed, I think it was 2 years ago now. But however, as the design has progressed, it was realized that West Street Pump Station, it currently struggles. It is operating over capacity multiple times in a day. When Susie Wilson Pump Station kicks on, it surges the station so that 2 pumps have to come on in order to pump down the level, which is not sustainable. So we already saw that, well, actually it's gotten worse over the past year, but we knew that the station was nearing its end of life. So when the engineers started looking at it, they realized replacing the equipment would only help it pump what it's currently receiving, but there's no capacity for future growth due to the size of the force main. And so the force main is the pipe that takes the wastewater from the pump station and moves it closer to the wastewater facility, where then we can use gravity to get it to the facility. And so in West Street's case, that is about a mile long pipe that goes from the station to about the intersection, or right on South Street Lane in a person's backyard. And then from there, it goes via gravity through the Southview Greenwood neighborhood to the station, to the facility. So right now, that's an 8-inch pipe and it needs to be bigger in order to allow for future growth. And force mains are not the cheapest to replace. It's anticipated to be a $2 million project. The timing of this project's pretty important, because if we were to proceed with the station replacement and keep the 8-inch force main, it would work for a period of time, but it put extra stress on the force main. Also, it would require us installing pumps that have like 2 or 3 times more horsepower than what is actually needed, and they're about $150,000. And then once we upgrade the force main, those pumps have to be removed to be right sized, and those are way too big. That's not any size. Those pumps are not any size that we would use in any other application in the city, so they would go to waste. So really, what the discussion is about is the timing of a bond vote, whether it take place in this November or the following March. River and Maple Street pump stations are going to be constructed first, bid out at the end of this year, and constructed in the winter, early spring. And then West Street was looking to follow that the following year in FY28. The other important thing to note is that this force main project is going to be shared with the town of Essex, likely to start with a 70-30 split that we've negotiated with the town, and then we may adjust that in the future based on flow, because we will be having that whole entire system will have flow meters in it, so we'll know exactly how much flow is coming from the town of Essex versus the city, which we don't have currently right now. Our station does not have an actual flow meter. We can calculate flow based on pump run hours, but there is a difference in that. And when this project proceeds, we do have to make some other amendments to include it in the engineering service agreement, which I did receive word that amount that is actually in this memo was cut in half. The state of Vermont, because this is looking to be a Clean Water State Revolving Fund project, is not going to have our engineers go through the full reassessment, so we will not have to spend as much engineering to look at the force main project. So that has already been revised, and that will be updated in the memo for July 22nd. But we will have to add it to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund application. And this all comes out of the Sanitation Capital Reserve Fund. And I think that's about all I have. So I guess I'll open up to questions.
So the only thing I wanted to clarify was that we're not making a decision tonight. I think
Correct.
Chelsea kind of hit that at the tail end here, is that one of the other things that I've been asking to see is our debt load from the bond
yep.
bank, and how much, given the fact that we just voted for bond, et cetera. And so that information's not available, so we're gonna have some conversation tonight, and then we're gonna have some more conversation probably on the 22nd, and we'll vote on it on the 22nd. So,
Correct.
and I think the only question I think that's out there that I've heard a couple of different times is this solely being done because it's driven by future development, or is this something that needs to be done regardless of whether we developed or not?
It would not do any service. The station will not last 25 years if you don't proceed with this. Yeah.
I think the question's
Go ahead.
for me more around the force main, like at what point in development, well, I think it needs to be done. And I would go for the sooner bond vote, because I think that's a question, so I'll just say that now. I'd prefer November and get it rolling. The only other thing I'll say about this, so it does sound like Maple and
River Street.
Thank you, are just us covering that, right?
Yes.
And the West
Yep.
Street is being split, which is why the numbers are a little weird in here, and that's totally fine, I get that now. I guess going back to the revenue thing, this is one of those places where at some point, development happened over the last 5 or 8 years that tipped this scale for the Forcemain itself, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing, not the only thing, pressures to increase the size are also coming from that same wave, that same impetus for development. So from a revenue point of view, we had this discussion 3 or 4 years ago when we did modify the service, the LDC fee schedule or whatever the fee schedule was.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it would be great to try to figure out how do we capture more money without also making bedrooms overly expensive to build, like where does that balance come in? I'm just gonna say, I don't know this super well, so these are a lot of questions I have, but I would love any resources, try to figure out, like, I don't think Grand List is gonna cover this growth, these expenses long-term. When, how, what's appropriate to kind of look at placing these expenses kind of a little bit more at the feet of where they're being brought to us from, if that makes any sense. So as that corridor, as the town, as all of that develops up, and it will, can we capture some of this back without, while trying to balance the price of development? And how do you do that? So I'm just putting that out there.
I think we have made significant balance because
Yeah,
I think
we've
we
made
added
progress.
that connection fee. I'm gonna probably not get the right fee, name for it, but like, that we weren't doing, and so we did that. But I think the question is more, like, we're constantly looking, every single year, we're looking at our fees and stuff, but there is that balance of at some point where somebody says, Essex Junction is just basically feed us out of being here.
But then you've
So-
got the taxpayers on the other side saying, I'm general funded out of the, being here. So that's kind of a curiosity for me. It's a curiosity. I don't know if I'm correct.
Yeah.
I'm admitting that. The only other question I had, I was on the tip of my tongue. Oh, any other situations like this that you've thought of around town that may be looking at future development where, have we kind of, I know slip line pipes and everything, there's been a lot of work underground over the last 10 years. Do we know of any places out that we're also going to be looking at this in the next?
Well, actually, the sanitation lines have not been fully investigated since
Okay.
2011.
Oh.
So that is, Hamlin has been doing sections of our collection system the past 3 years. So he's done West Street. He started with West Street, which his report supports that the station's running over capacity. And he has just finished up, they've just finished up a high school pump station service area because we think we have a lot of infiltration inflow because there's a high groundwater table in that area. But based on what we talked about at the retreat, I was going to put in the FY28 capital plan an actual capacity study for the rest of the collection system if we can, rather than doing it piecemeal. So we have a starting point where all at the same point and we can identify those areas, rather than it being over 5 years and then going back and development's already changed or whatnot. So a starting point and then working from there.
Like doing that and then looking at, for instance, a fee schedule, an expense, like a
Right.
capital plan, then from there, and we can have more info. Thanks.
Yep.
Bethany?
Is there a reason this was not able to be, this need was not able to be identified in the initial project design? And maybe that's a stupid question, I don't know.
It just wasn't engineered far enough in the engineering process for that part to be identified. It's easier to come up with costs to get a bond vote than. Also, the station has been showing more signs of struggling in the past year. So it's just started to kind of snowball.
Okay, well, until you said that, I was gonna lean towards pushing a vote till March. Just so that, we have conversations about the budget in November and, it would be nice to understand a picture of the budget before voting on a bond, but if there's signs of struggle, then it's more important that we make sure that everything works. I said should.
Especially when it comes
So-
to pump station.
November it is.
Chelsea, can I just ask you what size we're upsizing the pipe to?
10-inch.
So from 8 to 10? And
Yep.
they've deemed that adequate, the engineers have deemed that adequate?
Yep, that will get us quite a bit of capacity. I think it's like at peak flows, which peak flows is the engineering term of if everyone were to turn their faucets on at once. So that rarely happens. It's more like if there was a storm or something, but it's like over a million gallons a minute through that station. I mean, this is one of our largest stations, with no, and actually is the only station that is most likely to fill a basement because of the elevation of the station in relation to the house on West Street Extension and the dentist office.
Right.
Meaning if we can't successfully move the water through the pipe all the way down to the plant, it could potentially back up to
Yes,
someplace.
Yeah, that is true, yes.
100%.
And what is do we know at the town of Essex, what their financial contribution is gonna be here?
At the start, it should be around 70%, and then we have discussions looking at based on flow through the facility or through the station in future years.
$2 million initial bond, we're
Yeah.
on the hook for 600,000 essentially,
Yeah, that was my.
right?
Because right
And
now,
then-
we're pretty sure their flow is around 70%, but like I said, they just got their flow meter in place on Susie Wilson's line, and they're going to be putting one more in for the, I think it's gravity fed through the Warner neighborhood. And then we're going to be putting a flow meter on our station, so we'll be able to tell right now exactly what's coming from the town of Essex versus us, because other than that, right now, they've been using water use estimates, which isn't accurate. It works, but it's not as good as an actual meter in a pipe telling you the flow.
Thank you, Tim. That was my question.
Yeah, we
Just
had
got
this
it now.
conversation
Yeah.
when we put the bond out for all 3 stations, because that was the big one.
Yeah.
And they were gonna pick up most of that cost. So again, like, I know we're not having this discussion, would behoove us to get that information out to voters as we
Yeah.
look to this bond. But yeah, I'm
We are
good.
having the discussion, we're just not.
Well, yeah, okay, but I think anything we can do to push the narrative that it's a 70-30 split, much like we did the last time, only stands to benefit. I have no problem with any of
I
the
think
rest
just
of it,
getting that dollar amount, that it's a $2 million
We did-
project.
Yes.
But we're not,
right?
We're not spending.
We did the same thing
our
with,
financial burden is not.
we did the same thing with the bond last year for, was it lead testing, water line
Yeah.
testing, right? So there's so much of that loan forgiveness that comes in that it doesn't end up costing us much in the end.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we just, to be clear, I think Chelsea has been clear, but we cannot guarantee that 70-30 split.
yeah, even if it just,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if it just is generically cost to be associated, cost to be shared with Essex Town through,
Yeah.
through flow rates.
Yeah.
Even
Yes.
if it's just
Just-
generic like that and it doesn't make any promises.
Just pushing the narrative that we're not spending the full 2 million.
Yeah, yes.
Correct. That is correct.
Perfect.
Brian, any questions, comments?
No. I don't have any comments. I think from a high level, I would prefer to have a bond vote in March and not November. But other than that, sounds like good catch of the problem. And before we kind of wasted that new money on that pumping station, Chelsea, nice job.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna open it.
Yeah, sorry, what's the process for the town? When are they voting on? When are they, the select board taking this up? And what
So-
happens, because if we still need to do this and they don't approve the bond in the town?
So, for that reason alone, they don't approve a bond. We take out the debt.
Oh,
We approve a bond.
okay, thank you. Sorry, should have realized that.
Yes, well, it's been
It's strange.
learning curve
Right,
through
because
the
of
prior
the,
ones
because
and
of
this
the,
one.
yes, because of naturally, right, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and then through our agreements, through the
Right.
tri-town, but this is only a 2-party agreement, just us and the town on the sanitation lines. That's how we clarify who pays what and their commitment to us. That agreement is pretty old, and Chelsea's been working with the town quite a bit over the last year or so to try to get that updated. That's why a part of that discussion has also been, it'd be great if we all have better data,
Yep.
hence the flow meters, and so it's all a work in progress, but,
Well, sorry, I never should
Yeah.
ask a dumb question, I guess.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up for public comment. Anyone online? Okay, Marcus.
So last time, it's 3.
I know. I think in FIFA, this would be what, a hat trick? So, I
Or a
totally
red
support.
card.
Good call, my friend. I support this project. The question that I have is around a couple of things. But first off, I do want to acknowledge that I had a recent conversation with a developer who seemed to acknowledge that they were being asked to put their project on hold on Pearl Street until this could be resolved. And so it feels like we've got stuff that's just sitting in the wings waiting for this to be done. So it would be great to get this moving as fast as possible. The other is thinking around the capacity. Tim, you asked the question about the pipe, so I'm going to ask the question about why is it just 2 inches of capacity? What is that? How much development are we going to be able to cover over the next 25 years with 2 additional inches on this pipe? While I don't see all of a sudden 600 new homes popping up, or 600 new apartments popping up along Pearl Street, I think over the next 25 years, we could definitely see a significant increase. We just saw the Contos property go on the market, and I know it was, in talking with the owner there, their hope was that that property and the adjoining properties might turn into into an expansion of housing within our community. So, we are going to need additional capacity. I'm just wondering how much capacity we're actually going to get out of this for how long. So I wonder if we shouldn't go bigger.
Chelsea? We're all looking at you.
I think they did have one more option above that, but it actually really comes down to both the town and myself working with Chris and Michael in community development did a 10-year 10 or 15-year broadcast out to what we thought development was going to be, and we used those numbers. It kind of mimicked what we've done the past 10 to 15 years to get where we thought we needed to flow, and then have a then some amount. But also the size of the pipe does come down to it's a lot. I don't know there's not an easy way for me to explain it unless you know science.
Volume and how to calculate that, but
Yeah, but it's also just like how to keep a longevity of a pipe. The 8-inch, if you stayed with that, it's all about pump. It's physics, honestly. It's pump dynamics, and it's a pump's ability to send something down the pipe. Also, the size of the space we have. We only lease that land from the railroad, and we're constrained by the railroad. Like if we had it our way, we would have wanted to put a building like a high school pump station, but there's not enough room. But we definitely we can reassess the numbers from a 10-inch to 12-inch. That's just where that seemed the most logical for the cost, and that would meet our needs for.
That we just on Pearl Street approved 9 stories. Or parts of
We
Pearl Street.
you did, but that is on eventually. We have to wait for the station to go in for that to go in place. But yes.
The 10-inch pipe we think would fulfill those needs.
so, just to be clear,
The
the
potential.
council approved a vision for higher heights.
I know that there's no plans.
The land development code is getting drafted right now by the planning commission, and they are pausing on higher.
Until
increasing the height
this
in
is-
this section of town. We're instead focusing on increasing heights in the locations of town that are gravity fed and not constrained by this pump station problem and Forcemain problem. So we are not changing the zoning down there until we've got this sorted out.
No, I understand that, but my question is the 10-inch gonna be enough to, say our dreams come true?
Yeah, like in
That's what-
3 years, if we change the zoning, will the 10-inch be enough?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or 10.
That was my understanding. I will double check the numbers though.
I think if the answer is no,
Then we
then I
need
think we need to understand the ramifications of
Well, let's-
moving to the 12.
Let's put it this way. We've been given,
It's where our assessment landed, so
yeah,
10-inch
I mean,
was what's gonna work for the
that sounds-
future.
I totally trust you in science. We have, I just want to say that because saying it these
I
days
feel like
is so
science
good.
should have changed.
But I guess one way I'd look at this is we have housing targets. We have a TOD, we have we have all this. So I kind of trust that when you sat with everybody, Chris and Michael and everybody, and kind of talked about those housing targets and what the plans are and what's likely to come, we can only fit so much. So I'm
Yeah.
feeling pretty good if you
And the
thought about it.
facility can only fit, like, our facility can't handle the amount of housing targets the state wants for our area. It's just, so, it's,
That's there.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this is, so the housing targets are in place for a real purpose. We are behind, we've been woefully behind in building in the state of Vermont, and we need to catch up. That said, the targets are big. The reality of us going from where we are today to those targets is pretty significant leap. And zoning is one of many limiting factors towards actually seeing those number of housing units come online. So, yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, Chelsea, I wanted to ask you a physics question. Because I think it will clarify what some of the concerns you guys have. If you, the amount of flow going through a pipe is a function of its diameter, not its radius.
right.
So by my math, this pipe is 56% bigger.
Yeah. It's quite a bit more. I wish I didn't remote into my files, so I can't pull up the flow, but for the July 22nd meeting, I could put the chart that the engineer gave us so you can see how much more flow we are getting with the 10-inch pipe.
Yeah, I mean, but certainly, I mean, not my kind of engineering, but seems to me if the pipe is getting 50% bigger, it's going to have 50% flow to an approximation, more flow. So
Yeah.
it seems like this is a big improvement. 2 inches sounds small, but 50% does not to me.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree. Yes.
Thank you.
Clarifying question.
Yes, and then I'm done. The physics conversation is over.
No, I totally understand. I think it would be easier for the council as well as for the public in order to understand, and I appreciate the math, because believe me, I can do the math. It's a matter of like, how many people is this gonna serve? How many people could it serve? And again, that's thinking about how many people, if we house more people along Pearl Street, how many can we get to? That way we can understand how much development we're actually gonna be allowed to do with a 10-inch pipe versus a 12-inch pipe, or whatever direction the council wants to direct this project into. I think if we can find some sort of a common way to talk about this that relates to the work that the council is doing and the direction the council is pointing versus trying to, assess this capacity, I think that would help bridge the conversation.
I think Chelsea hears you. Regina hears you.
Thank you.
Jess, everyone heard that. Stay tuned for the July 22nd meeting for more conversation.
So it would be helpful to understand generally if we are talking about November or March, because I need to bring very specific documents forward on July 22nd if we're talking about November.
True.
November.
Okay, so I got one vote for November. Brian, March or November? I think you said March earlier, you're on mute.
Prefer March, could be persuaded.
Okay. Tim?
I was leaning November based on the recommendation, just to be able to continue to keep the schedule on track for this entire project.
Bethany?
I lean toward March, but I can go with November, especially considering the concerns about issues recently.
I was gonna go November, so I think it sounds like the consensus is November.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right, discussion and consideration of setting a special meeting to set the FY 27 tax rate, 5D.
Okay, so we are still sort of sorting this out. If there is a potential that we can set the tax rate at your July 22nd meeting, but it is more than likely that we could benefit from and need to set the tax rate after that meeting. So we are hopeful that we can do a special meeting on Monday, August 3rd at 5:30 to do this one business item. The BCA, which you are all a part, will be meeting at 6 p.m. that night.
All right.
Great.
Seems pretty straightforward. Motion?
I move that the city
Or is
council.
was there any kind of conversation? Okay.
I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
I
Do
think
you
it's
want to
pretty
do it?
straightforward, but I just want to leave it out there. Okay, go ahead.
I move that the city council set a special council meeting on August 3rd, 2026 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous.
No public comment?
You've had your trifecta.
Nope,
buddy.
you got your 3 and you're done. Okay, item E is the approve the command vehicle bid award. I don't think we need any more conversation on it, but we do need to vote on it because we removed it from the consent agenda, so, I guess it's gonna be the opposite I guess I could do a motion to approve the command vehicle bid award. And somebody can just, I mean, you're looking like you're
Well,
lost.
I'm trying to find it. I'm just wondering if we pull it and table it.
Okay.
30.
You can do that, that's fine.
Like, because then we're not,
You're
unless we
not,
need to
you're not
we're
approving it.
not
Right.
approving
That's
it,
fine.
and
30.
it's still alive.
36 is.
So then I'll take a motion to table the approval of the command vehicle bid award.
Does that make sense then?
That's fine,
Yeah.
yes, that's
Because then
fine.
it's not dead, it's
Alright.
just,
Yep,
I'll make that motion.
okay,
So
so,
moved. Yep. Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
I'm gonna vote no on that one, so
We
I'll
got
do a
roll
roll call. Bethany,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Raj,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
nay. Okay, that passes. All right, so then I gotta get back onto my agenda. So the last item is an executive session to discuss attorney-client communication and litigation. We are going to come back with a resolution, motion, however you want to call it. So let's do the consent.
Want me to read it? Oh.
Yes, I
move
do
it-
want you to do it, but can you move
I
the
move we
consent
approve
first?
the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, council member comments and city manager report. Regina?
I don't have anything, just a note, we did put out a message today that our rules in the city of Essex Junction are still that you can only put campaign signs out in the public right-of-way 2 weeks before an election. The primary is on August 11th, so that means 2 weeks before that. So we're asking folks to take signs out of the right-of-way, and the city will be removing them.
And I just want to, just for the record, that means that July 28th
Yes, thank you.
is the date
Sounds
that they
right.
can put them out.
Thank you. Any city councilor comments?
Oh, sorry,
Oh.
one other.
No, we've gone past you.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I would like to remind folks that next Friday, Brownell Library will be having their 100th birthday party right here behind the 2 Lincoln Brownell location. That starts at 4 p.m., 4 to 7 p.m. on Friday, July 17th.
Good reminder.
Yeah, excited for that.
Yeah.
I just want to make a quick note that Public Works seems to be out painting crosswalks and stop bars in the day, which is inconvenient to some people, and they seem to be rather understanding that they can't get to the intersection they need to get to while the paint is wet. So just want to acknowledge that that's happening. Appreciate the patience of everyone as they encounter those crosswalks. There hasn't been any night painting by the looks of it at this point, but I assume that'll be coming soon. So that's all.
I move the city council make the specific finding that premature disclosure of the confidential attorney-client communications regarding a probable litigation would place the city at a substantial disadvantage. And I move that the city council enter an executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications regarding probable litigation pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1E and 1 VSA 313A1F to include the city council and city manager.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. All right. Thank you. We will be back hopefully shortly. Okay, so we are back in session.
Can we just do a test real quick? Sorry. Brian, can you hear us?
It is 8:26. Brian can hear us? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to ratify the settlement agreement with Rebecca Santillo on behalf of her daughter Alexa Santillo.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.